Alright, so in OpenOffice, if you have numerical data and you're trying to group it into different bins for the purpose of making a histogram, the process is a little bit different from trying to group data or do a frequency chart for categorical data. Okay, it's a little bit of a different process. I'm going to show you how that works here. So I'm using the same information I'm using before with all the salaries of baseball players. And I'm just going to use the idea of salary here because that's going to be numerical data. So first thing I want to do actually is figure out how many bins I wanted to use and calculate a good bin width for that. So what I started with, remember if you want to calculate bin width, you need the range of your data. So the difference between the highest and lowest values of the data. So what I did is I used a function in OpenOffice called max. So I went into a cell here, typed equals max to create that function, and then open bracket, and then I selected all the data in the salary column. Okay, once I selected all that data, I pushed enter, and it gave me that maximum value of 22 million. There's the highest salary that someone made that year. Okay, by the same token, I used the function called minimum, min. So then did min, open bracket, selected the data, pushed close my bracket, pushed enter, and got the smallest value in that in the data set. And then I went to find the range, which is the difference between the highest and lowest values. So I went equals, and then I clicked H13, so the maximum value, minus H14, the minimum value. Clicked those, pushed enter, and again, got my range. And then I sort of experimented with my bin width, the number of bins I wanted. So I actually tried a few different values here. I tried 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, played around until I saw something I thought was reasonable. And remember, to calculate bin width, it's your range divided by the number of bins. So again, I created a formula here for bin width. I clicked on my range, divided by my number of bins, and then what I could do is I can change my number of bins until I found a bin width I thought would work very, very well for my data. So if I change my number of bins here to, let's say, 5, it would suggest my bin width be about 4,340,000. So I could play around with it as much as I wanted to, so I found something I could work with. So I personally chose 8, which tells me to do a bin width of about 2.7 million, and I actually rounded that to 3 million. Okay, so I used 3 million for each of my bin widths because it was a nice round number. So in order to sort the data into bins, what I need to do is I typed in all the upper bounds for each of my bins. So my first bin would go from 0 to 3 million, so I typed in 3 million. And then it would go from 3 million, 1 to 6 million, and so on and so forth. But I put in all the upper bounds of 3 million, 6 million, 9 million, 12 million, and so on and so forth. Okay? So now, the function to sort this data, now when we were doing categorical data, we use that whole function called countif. Countif does not work when you're trying to set to put this data into groups because there's a lot of different conditions you need to put on it, and it gets a little bit complicated, and OpenOffice doesn't actually allow it. What they instead have is a function called frequency. Now, it's a bit of a more complicated thing to get at, so the easiest way to do it in OpenOffice is to click on something called the function wizard. So I'm going to click where I want the first value of my data to go. I'm going to click on the function wizard. And the nice thing about that is once you know what you're looking for, it actually helps you create the formula, so there's not going to be any syntax errors. You can avoid that. But what we're looking for, again, is called frequency. So you can either type it, you can go under the category all and search for it. Okay, so I'm going to choose frequency right here, and if you double click on it, it'll then show you the format it wants. So first thing you do, so it says here it's going to return a frequency distribution as a vertical array, which is great. So it says choose the data that you want, which is fine. So all the data we're going to have for salaries. So I'm going to select that, highlight all my salaries. Okay, so it's going to be all 439 of them. Okay, so select them all, push enter, and now it asks for classes. So that's going to be it's going to be asking for the values that you want to sort into. So when I go to my salary range values here, I'm going to highlight all the upper bounds of my bin widths. Okay, so what this is telling me is with this formula here, it actually gives it to me. That's the nice thing about this function wizard, is it's telling me to take the data of the salaries, okay, and sort it into bins according to the upper values, the upper bounds that I listed there in those cells. So when I push OK, all all of a sudden it does everything for me. So what this is telling me, there's 321 players whose salary is between 0 and 3 million. 52 players that go in the next bin, 39 in the next bin, 13 in the next, and so on and so forth. Okay, so right from there I get my frequency chart, and once that's sorted, I can do everything I did before with relative frequency charts, and then creating histograms, bar graphs, whatever I need. Okay, so but the big thing here is sorting the numerical data into bins is a bit more complicated than doing with categorical data. But once you have this set up, you're good to go, and you can create charts just the way you did in the previous videos. Okay, so hopefully that's helpful. Again, if you get stuck, come see me for help, and I'll see what I can troubleshoot. But good luck, and hope this goes well.